Hey dudes, it's the Sonic series. This is the 10th game and 9th video where I go in depth about my thoughts on each mainline game in the series. Here's a list of the games I'll talk about. Sonic Mania is the halfway point, so let's begin. Sonic Mania is one of the most fascinating releases from a gaming company within the last decade. A bunch of random dudes were just asked by Sonic Team to make a brand new, throwback 2D classic Sonic title, and man was this needed. 3 years from Lost World, 6 from Generations, Sonic fans desperately needed a dub, and they got one of the best ones they could have gotten. Mania is chock full of so much passion, love, care, and fun that all comes together to create one of the best Sonic experiences one can have, and my personal favourite 2D experience. Yeah, I can't lie, this is my favourite 2D Sonic game of all time, and at such a small price tag, there's no reason why you shouldn't play it if you haven't already. But why? Why does this one speak to me more than all the others? How does it hold up nearly 8 years later? Well, let me break it down for you. Here is why Sonic Mania is classic Sonic perfection. The main aspect of classic Sonic that ultimately decides which one speaks to you the most is, of course, the level design. If the levels aren't fun, the game isn't fun. Before we start talking about the design of the levels, however, we must, of course, address the green hills in the room. Sonic Mania reuses most of its zones from previous classic titles, those being in order: Green Hill, Chemical Plant, Flying Battery, Stardust Speedway, Hydrocity, Oil Ocean, Lava Reef, and Metallic Madness. Over the years, I've seen more and more people as of late express disappointment with this fact, even going as far as to say the game isn't nearly as good as any of the classics thanks to this. Anyway, here's why I think this is stupid. Whilst I do agree that more unique zones would have been nice, especially considering how cool the ones we got were, what ultimately matters is the level design of these zones. It's not like the fact Lost Valley from Forces is bad purely because it takes place in Green Hill. The design of the level itself is why it's bad. Mania remixes these classic zones with new design, new mechanics, and fantastic new music, making this game feel more like a trip down memory lane than a panda fest. If you prefer the level design of the classics, that's totally fair, I can't argue with that. But saying that this game is lacking purely because Oil Ocean's here is, in my humble opinion, a pretty mid-take. I'd even argue it was a cool way for the developers to go wild with new mechanics and ideas to expand what we already know about these locations. With that disclaimed, let's get into these absolute bangers. After Eggman and his new collection of baddies, the Hard-Boiled Heavies, unearth a Phantom Ruby from the grounds of Angel Island, they transport Sonic and gang to Green Hill, which is just as good as the original, if not better. It is just as freeing and fun as the original, working both as a great stage for beginners to learn the ins and outs of Sonic gameplay, but also as a way for speedrunners to blitz through and explorers to find fun secrets. The usage of all the fun shield types found in Sonic 3 is fantastic, the zip lines in Act 2 are a fun new addition which changes things up in a nice way, and the drop dash. So this game introduced the drop dash into Sonic's move arsenal, where you hold the jump button in the air to release a mini spin dash once you reach the ground. I can never go back after this. The difference between not having the drop dash and having it is truly something you have to experience for yourself. I'd argue it's one of the key reasons why these games are so fun for me. There's so much application for this move in all of the levels, especially this one, as it's so open for fun movement options. This is easily the best classic version of Green Hill out there. It is so goddamn fun. Chemical Plant in Mania fixes any and all problems I have with the original. It keeps all the fun spectacle speed moments the original is known for, but it also actually creates a level design to platform through. You interact with the water a lot more in Act 1 than just in the iconic moment, and there's quite a lot of moments where the speed you gather leads you to alternate paths. Act 2, however, introduces so many cool things I adore. We got these syringes that inject this goop to bounce you super high, these sticky moving walls that take you places, whatever this thing is supposed to be. I still think Act 1 is a little too automated for my liking, but Act 2 is genuinely one of the most fun levels in the entire game, thanks to all of these sick mechanics. whilst we're here, let's go over the special stages, as they're super fun too. To even get to them, you have to find a giant ring somewhere in any of the levels, like in Sonic 3. This is by far my favourite way to get to these stages. It encourages exploration for the people who want the edge, whilst not forcing you into them if you don't want to try them. The stages themselves are a race to catch the emerald from these weird UFO things in a 3D space styled like Sonic R. You collect the blue orbs to increase your speed and the rings to increase your time. These are probably my second favourite special stages behind Sonic 3, they're super fun. It can feel really deflating, mainly because there's no way to retry, but that's nothing a little grinding post-completion can't solve. Anyhow, yeah, good special stages, fantastic level, way better than the original. Here it is, baby. The level from Sonic Mania, Studiopolis. This is widely regarded as the best level from the game, and yeah, being the first of 4 brand new zones in this game, the new mechanics and style of this level is absolutely unparalleled outside of the entirety of Sonic CD. It has a little bit of everything for every type of player. Countless speedy sections with so much flair, so many unique shortcuts in every layer of the level, fantastic hiding spots for the giant rings and item boxes for those exploration heads. It's pretty much the definition of a classic Sonic level. I'd argue this level is trying to feel like a pinball level too, which truly exemplifies how well the level designers understood the assignment. I love the mechanic of the trucks with the satellites on them in Act 1. The silhouettes where you're behind the glass is such a cool touch. The bingo is super cool, you're always doing something and thinking about something, come on! Take a look at this screenshot and attempt to muster the words, "It's not peak. I dare you." I also want to talk about the boss fights here, as this game actually gets them quite right. The adrenaline is forever constant within these fights, and they never skimp out on the charm. You literally play Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bee Machine for the second boss of Chemical Plant Man, how can you not love that? Green Hill's Act 1 boss is kind of underwhelming, but it's a first boss, it's understandable. Act 2's boss is really solid though, with a unique fight against the Death Egg robot. Chemical Plant Act 1's boss is okay, but Studiopolis Act 1 is damn incredible. You're constantly running to the right and must hit one of the blue missiles back at the Hard-Boiled Heavies. It's full of so much adrenaline and excitement, man, I love it. Act 2's is also quite good, with some really creative uses of the weather to make some cool attack patterns. Overall, Studiopolis is in the running for one of, if not, my favourite classic Sonic zone of all time, but I'm sure you expected that at least. Oh hell yeah, Flying Battery is awesome! This is probably one of the least changed zones in the game, but what was there to change with the original? It is just as hype, just as enticing, just as fun as the original. There is a fantastic blend of speed and platforming in this masterclass of design that never gets old to play, whilst never forgetting how fun it is to explore. The sheer amount of cool moments and fun secrets hidden in both acts here is way too much to list, but I'll try to list at least some of my favourites. I love this spring which launches you perfectly onto the pulley. I love the drastic changes to the environments when you enter and exit the ship. The cylinders you run around are a marvel on the eyes. God, I love this zone. Act 1's boss can be easily cheesed if you find a lightning shield, but without it, it can be decently enjoyable. Act 2's boss is one I'm kinda mixed on though. If done right, it can be super fun to launch this giant spider across to the spikes, and I love the concept of using momentum from the poles to damage the boss. If done wrong, however, it's not really that fun. Well, hey, I do like it more than I don't, which altogether makes Flying Battery easily one of the best zones in the game, and of the 2D games. Press Garden, what an original zone! This is easily one of the most visually striking locations in the entire game, being themed around the Meiji Shrine in Tokyo. The art of this game as a whole is easily some of the best the series has seen, by far the best of the 2D games at least, but Press Garden stands tall among each location as one of the most stunning. Act 1 focuses on these conveyors that propel you in a certain direction, and they're super fun to traverse on. There's also these crushers that, well, crush you if you're inside of them for too long, and oh man, this level's sick. Act 2 goes for completely different mechanics, however, introducing these ice machines that constantly propel you until you break through it all. The ice in general has a whole collection of goodies to find in it, and can you tell that this game is good yet? By now you'd expect at least one mid-zone in any other 2D Sonic game, but this one is simply built differently. In terms of the bosses, they are both, again, pretty solid. Well, okay, the first one's pretty mid, but I really enjoy the second one. You gotta hit the heavy in the air to stun him, then hit him again to actually deal damage. Pretty good boss for a fantastic zone that really shows off the significant passion poured into this game. It's Stardust Speedway from my beloved Sonic CD. In the original, this zone was kinda lackluster all things considered. The main mechanic is poorly explained, and there's not really much to explore or speedrun. This game, however, transforms the level into the stage that deserves the reputation it's gotten over the years. Act 1 takes place in the past and fully utilizes the greenery, with vines that grow platformable leaves and chomping enemies from the environment. There's even a few of the Act 3 finishes from the original game around the place you can destroy for funsies. It's a great time. Act 2 takes you to the present, and focuses more on the spring launches and the maze-like speed tunnels. There is constant adrenaline and hype throughout this entire level, man. How could one not love this place? Act 1's boss is a really neat fight against a big bold guy, not anything too special, but still fun. Act 2's, however, our boy Metal Sonic's back, baby. We begin with a little platforming challenge, not too hard, but still super fun. He then gets into this contraption that sends out little robots you have to attack. Once that's down, he's still not done. Eggman gives him a Phantom Ruby, and he transforms into this giant mech, reminiscent of Knuckles' Chaotix's final boss. This is awesome! This is easily one of the best fights in the game, better yet of every classic Sonic game, topping off Stardust Speedway amazingly. This is easily better than the original in every aspect, outside of maybe the music, depending on who you ask. Hydrocity. Okay, fine, I actually say Hydrocity, argue in the comments. Being already one of the best water levels in the franchise, this version just fucks. I've always loved the massive scope of this level thanks to the visuals, both versions included. You know when you're waiting to go on a ride in a water park and you look up to see how high the ceiling is? I don't know why, but that's the vibe I get from this zone, and I want it to keep coming. The verticality of this place combined with the fun mechanics of the boat and bubble makes for an unforgettable location. I really don't think there's ever a dull moment here, despite the slow nature of the water and generally slower mechanics. Act 1's boss has a really neat reference to Labyrinth Zone with its intro, but the idea of you controlling Eggman's mech and giving him a taste of his own medicine is simply chef's kiss. Act 2's boss is one of the most frantic. You're being flown away from Eggman thanks to the water current and have to hit him with bombs. It's super great, even if Phase 2 is a rehash of a boss I already found mid in Sonic 3. Overall, Hydrocity is just as fantastic as the original, with a few new bells and whistles to make it super fun on its own. Took you long enough to give me a mid-zone. Okay, I'm super sorry about this, but Mirage Saloon is probably my least favorite zone in the game. Don't get me wrong, it's still super fun with some fantastically unique set pieces, but Act 1 in particular is just kind of whatever. The main reason being that most of it takes place on Tails' Tornado. I get it, you want the reference and all, but man, I would have loved to have seen 2 full acts of this place. One at the bar we get in the second zone, and this one on an extended train section we see in Act 1. This thing takes like 30 seconds to finish and then you fight the boss. On the Tornado, again, it's not bad, it's just kinda whatever. At least Act 2 is complete and super fun with these really cool guns that shoot you to different locations and the bar stools that spin you around. The boss is super sick too, cameoing Fang the Sniper, Bean the Dynamite, and Bark the Polar Bear. Stuff like this is exactly how this game feels fan-made. This stuff wouldn't be seen if it was created by the official Sonic team. Overall, I respect the hell out of Mirage Saloon Zone, but I would be lying if I said I loved playing through it. I believe some of my playthroughs before I got super into Sonic ended around here, so that really says it all. Oil Ocean is such a neat choice to bring back from Sonic 2. I would have expected something like Casino Night or Aquatic Ruin thanks to their popularity, but I'm all here for this decision. We had fun in our previous zones, sure, but here's where shit gets real. I'm not saying it's hard or anything, but there's definitely a jump in difficulty from the last few zones in this one, which I'm all for. Much like the original, it's hard to say exactly what this zone does super well, outside of the atmosphere of course, but the level design is just super fun, and that's that. Act 2 adds something entirely new for the level, however, slowly covering the screen with a steamy mist that kills you if you don't get rid of it. Basically, it's the mechanics from Studiopolis Act 2, but in a less secluded environment, making it much better. Plus, I got Supersonic here, giving me the zoomies. This is a super cool mechanic, however, being one of the few things actively making you slow down in the whole game. There's also these segments where you enter these ships to progress, which is super cool. Man, is this a good adaptation. The boss of Act 1 is the most cheesable thing in existence, and Act 2 is just a reskin of the original's boss for the most part, so that's not all too great. But overall, it's a really solid zone, despite probably being in the lower half for me. Holy moly, I've been waiting for this one! I don't know why, but Lava Reef's one of my personal favorite zones in terms of aesthetic and atmosphere of all of the classics. There's something so cool and empowering about exploring this giant volcano complex, knowing you're at the end of your journey. It's one of my faves from Sonic 3, and it holds up just as nicely in Mania. I always feel like I'm finding new things on every replay of this level. It's chock full of little secrets and surprises that never fail to excite me. The secluded, almost claustrophobic nature of the level elevates it to such a high status for me, but Act 2 comes along to give me something totally different. It's a huge, sprawling cave of crystals, and not the Donkey Kong one. I always forget that this tonal shift happens, thanks to how invested I get in the first part, but man do I love it. The level itself is just about as good too. The bosses are pretty simple overall, just avoid the falling rocks if you're not golden in Act 1, and I forget how Act 2's goes because I am golden. Overall, Lava Reef is a calm before the storm I absolutely adore, being one of my favorites from the game. Speaking of the storm, Metallic Madness is exactly that. This is easily the funkiest zone in the game, not just because of the banging music, but because of the zoinky level design inspired by CD. This version adds these scales that transport you to the background, which is just the coolest mechanic, man. Seen originally in the game Virtual Boy Wario Land, this is an incredible way to show how the environment extends much further than what you explore in-game, because you actually get to. Even Mario Wonder does this in countless cool ways, man. Every modern 2D platformer should incorporate something like this. This zone is non-stop adrenaline and excitement. You feel the end coming up, and you feel cool. Also, Tiny Sonic is back, baby! You could probably tell that I like this a lot, man. I already raved about it in my CD vid. This version of the zone sort of feels like it combines a bunch of cool things from previous Final zones into one, thanks to the introduction of the spinning circles from Scrap Brain. I also love the use of the flipping space thingies, the enemies are all great, just they cooked, man, what else is new? Act 1's boss is a unique take on Sonic 1's final boss, which is pretty cool, but Act 2's is built around the Tiny Sonic idea. You have to destroy little versions of previous Eggman fights, including a little Amy, which is awesome. Metallic Madness is an almost perfect penultimate stage, hyping you up like no other for the big finale. Speaking of that big finale, Titanic Monarch is easily my favorite final zone of any 2D Sonic game. It's not even close. Every mechanic works absolutely perfectly with one another to create a masterful display of 2D Sonic level design. These electric balls are a cool take on the spinning circles from the previous zone. I love the poles that stop you for a split second then launch you if you're fast, it's satisfying as hell. The little Eggmobiles taking you places is super fun, what more is there to love? You're constantly going up for the whole of Act 1, making you feel like you're infiltrating this secret facility you shouldn't be in. Act 2, however, is probably the most interesting act in the game. You have to complete 4 individual platforming challenges before reaching the final boss, which you can tackle in any order. This is such a cool way of making a unique final level, I've never forgotten it. It's quite a long level too, but it manages to never feel like a slog. In terms of the bosses, Act 1's is solid, if a bit cheesable thanks to the rings. Act 2's, however, is a gauntlet in an actually good way this time. Yeah, surprise surprise, Mania figured out how to make a good final boss too. Eggman's only vulnerable when his electric-y things start to pulsate, so you have to aim carefully when he is vulnerable. Every now and then, he'll get one of the Hard-Boiled Heavies to do a funny attack at you, which makes you change up your strategy on the fly. This is a wonderful fight that actually challenges you without requiring perfection. I love Titanic Monarch to death, leaving only one part of the game left. If you managed to collect all 7 Chaos Emeralds, you enter the secret final boss against the Phantom King and Eggman, both utilizing the power of the Phantom Ruby, and it is awesome! The music is positively rockin', the timer's constantly changing, the ring counter's naturally depleting, adding much needed urgency, and the boss itself is sick! I won't say it's a masterclass of design or anything, but it has a challenge to it you figure out before it's over, and landing the final blow to see that ending cutscene is one of the most satisfying things in a 2D Sonic game, bar none. This is easily my favorite final boss of all the 2D classics, beating the Doomsday Zone for me. Nothing comes close to how empowered and hyped you feel at this point, man. This game is fantastic. That is all of the levels from Sonic's main campaign. As of writing this script, I still haven't gone through Knuckles' campaign, which features some slightly altered levels, as well as the Plus expansion, which added Encore mode and Mighty and Ray as playable characters, so I may leave that for another time. Of what I have played, however, this is easily the most consistent 2D Sonic game in terms of the quality of the levels for me. There is genuinely not a single level I dread or do not have fun in. Lead developer Christian Whitehead knew exactly what to do with this game, perfectly blending speedy spectacles and atmospheric exploration in a way that's never been seen before in the mainline franchise. I absolutely adore this game thanks to all of this, and more, which, hey, why don't we talk about that now? I originally intended to talk about this concept with one of the last videos I'll do in this series, but I'd figured I'd at least introduce it here, as it is just as major of a topic with this game as in the one I will not disclose yet. Basically, I personally feel like it is easy to tell when a game has passion baked into it or not. This doesn't necessarily apply to this series, by the way, it can apply to any, but when you can't really see passion in the game you're playing, it's likely you won't like it as much. For a non-Sonic example, let's take Metroid. The Prime Trilogy, and soon Quadrilogy, I'm so hyped for Prime 4, has so much passion. The endless amounts of lore you can read up on, the groundbreaking visuals for the time, and the fantastic characters and cutscenes all come together in all games to create, honestly, a perfect trilogy. Maybe I'll make a series on those in the future. Anyway, to counteract this, let's take Metroid Other M. I played the first 40 minutes recently, and was so bored that I turned it off and replayed the whole of Metroid Prime 2 instead. I'm dead serious. One of the key reasons why I didn't enjoy it is because it felt so generic and lifeless. The visuals aren't as interesting as previous games, the characters are pretty flat, Samus is just not Samus, and all this combined with the polarizing controls made for a game that I just do not want to see through to the end, at least for now. I won't deny that there most likely was passion for this game from the people behind it. I mean, all the CGI cutscenes speak for themselves, but when I'm playing a game and feel like I'm just going through the motions, that really says it all. The Prime Trilogy? Passionate. Other M? Not passionate. Let's give one more example before circling back to Sonic. Paper Mario. It's been said countless times by countless people, and I pretty much agree. Sticker Star was a lifeless, miserable experience that misunderstood everything about RPGs and the franchise it was attached to. Recently, I replayed Super Paper Mario, and man does that game have passion. Even if I'm not the biggest fan of the gameplay, I can tell that the developers really pushed themselves to create a dark, compelling story that's still being talked about today. Even in a game like Origami King, which I'm personally not too fond of, I can see the passion with characters like Bobby and the graphical fidelity of the game. Super Paper Mario? Passionate. Sticker Star? Not passionate. And now, we circle back to Sonic the Hedgehog. I genuinely don't want to bring this game up as much as I unfortunately have been, but it's once again become relevant to the conversation, so let's get back to forces. This one's in a similar situation to Origami King for me. I can see that there is indeed passion behind this game with the concepts behind the story, for instance, but that passion had to be stripped away for whatever reason before the game was released. For Origami King, it was because the big man up top's massive ego, and for Forces, it was purely just to release the game for the holidays. This is a key reason as to why I really dislike Forces as much as I do. It is a showcase of what happens to a product when the people upstairs force negative restrictions onto the passionate people down below. However, Sonic Mania, the game which was released mere months before this one, is an example of what we get out of a product with practically no restrictions. A game with every aspect of itself complete and well made. A game made entirely with passion. Well thought out mechanics that complement the fast-speed gameplay, deep-cut references made out of love, not a cop-out, stunning visuals with even the smallest of details thought out, tons of bonus content to keep you coming back more once you're done. This is passion. I wholeheartedly believe that if Christian Whitehead and the others behind this game were not as passionate about the project as they were, this game wouldn't be as well loved as it is. However, as I said at the beginning of this section, I will go far more in depth about this concept in the future episodes of this series, so stay tuned for more passionate talkings. We're still not done with Mania, however, as there's still a few individual aspects of the game I want to talk about, beginning with... If you have 25 rings and reach a checkpoint, you get the ability to try out a random blue spheres course. These work the exact same way as they do in Sonic 3 and Knuckles. Make all the blue balls red. Wait, I always have a great time in these minigames, man. They're really nice pace breakers if you want to try something a little different mid-stage. Much like my beloved Sonic CD, this game has animated intros and outros. These are straight up some of my favorite scenes we've ever gotten in this franchise, especially in that intro, man. I said it once, and I'll say it again, this is passion. You wouldn't get the robot to look to the side before saluting if the animators didn't pour their heart and soul into this, would we? The smear frames are excellent, the environments look stunning, the music is so emotionally resonant, I feel nostalgic over this even though I barely played and watched it. Man, it's almost impossible to put into words how much I love this stuff. Honestly, that's about everything I can muster about everything else. Like I said earlier, I haven't played through the game with Knuckles or did the Encore mode, so that's really all I can talk about. You know what that means, I guess it's time to talk about music. This is easily one of the best 2D Sonic soundtracks, right behind CD for me. I've listened to it for ages and ages. Here are some of my favorites. The Save Select screen has one of the chillest, most snazziest vibes of the soundtrack. I love it. Is there a world where Studiopolis Act 1 isn't beloved? I doubt it, as it's easily one of the best level themes in the entire franchise. Flying Battery Act 1 is such an intense, high-octane theme that never gets old. I don't think anything else would fit this level better, man. It's unforgettable. Press Garden Act 2 is probably another one of my favorite themes in the franchise, to be honest. It's so chill and happy and, man, just listen to it now. Stardust Speedway Act 1 lives up to the incredibly high expectations set by CD's soundtrack. It goes for its own thing, without really feeling like any version of the Stardust Speedway theme ever made. Take a gander. Have you ever heard a more snazzy song than Hydrocity Act 1? I could listen to this one for forever, man. It works perfectly. Lava Reef Zone Act 1 is, weirdly enough, one of the catchiest themes in the game. I feel like most people don't think twice about it at first, but a second listen will get you hooked. Both versions of Metallic Madness are some of the coolest songs on the soundtrack. Act 1 focuses on what Sonic is thinking at that point. And Act 2 focuses on Eggman and his POV with some of the fastest speaking I've ever heard in a song, man. Cool it a bit. Titanic Monarch Act 2 is super underrated to me. It sells this ominous, oppressive vibe even more than Act 1 to me. Give it a listen. Eggman Boss 1 isn't as hype as the boss theme from CD to me, but that doesn't mean it isn't one of the most hype songs of the soundtrack, making you more excited than ever to destroy that man in the shape of an egg. Egg Reverie Zone, as I said in the section about it, is one of the most hype songs paired with the most awesome boss. Finally, I gotta end on the song from the intro of this game, Friends. This is genuinely one of the most feel-good songs in the franchise, making that intro so much more emotional than it already was, man. I'm crying! And that is everything. T. Lopes, Naofumi Hataya, and Hyper Potions did such a grand job on this soundtrack, completing this ensemble game with literally nothing wrong with it. I hope I've got you to listen to some incredible music through this vid, if you haven't listened to it already. With everything said and done, it's time to end this. Sonic Mania is a game that doesn't just happen. You don't ever see official major studios like Sega allow the fans to make something official, and have it do this well. This is a monumental achievement, for not only the Sonic community, but for gaming as a whole. We don't need constant ginormous AAA releases costing 90 quid all the time. Sometimes it's nice to dial back with a smaller project which you can get absolutely perfectly. We've seen it with this game, and with Shadow Generations more recently. Let's just hope the official Sonic team can finally make something as complete and flawless as this. That's all for this episode. Next one is a big milestone for me, thanks to my ginormous history with it. I'll talk about it then, so I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.